This week I've made a few videos talking about the University of Texas, and today we find ourselves making another video talking about the University of Texas because they make even more splashes, hiring Bryan Carrington's replacement in Brandon Harris. And we need to talk about not only why I think this is a good hire, but why guys like Brandon Harris and Bryan Carrington are going to be an integral part of college football as a whole and not just at UT, so you don't want to miss that. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. So hop down to the comments and give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you like the hiring of Brandon Harris? And let me know why. Guys, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, that way you don't miss any of my uploads. I'm going to be doing a ton more content, whether that's player reviews, film analysis, or general talk style videos like this, and I'm on my push to 5,000 subscribers within my first year of having a channel, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. If you enjoy the video, drop a like and comment down below, because that stuff really does go a long way in helping content creators like myself get picked up by the algorithm. But with all that being said, let's take a look into Brandon Harris and why I like this hiring. And as I said, aside from just liking the hiring of Brandon Harris, guys like Bryan Carrington and Brandon Harris are going to become a bigger part of college football as we move forward, and it's only inevitability that is going to happen. And I think the reasons I'm high on Brandon Harris will also answer why guys like Bryan Carrington and Brandon Harris are going to become a bigger part of college football. So really first starting at Bryan Carrington, and I know there's a split in Longhorns camp. I made a video talking about Carrington, and I was surprised by the amount of comments I got at pushback at saying that people didn't believe that he was as important of a piece to Longhorns' recruiting success as he was. And I am of the mindset that Bryan Carrington was an incredibly important piece to the Longhorns' recruiting staff. Even though he might not have been the primary recruiter on guys like Bijan Robinson, he was such an effective liaison to the university that recruits were comfortable with him. He made the primary recruiter's job a lot easier in his capacities at what he did at the University of Texas. He was a very positive force for the Longhorns, and his loss will be felt. Now, it's easier to temper that loss when you have Steve Sarkisian come in there and bring some of the top recruiters in the nation, from Jeff Banks, Kyle Flood, Pete Kukowski, Bo Davis, you name it, there are recruiters everywhere on that staff. So already with the hiring of Steve Sarkisian and that staff, when you lose Bryan Carrington, I wouldn't classify it as a big loss because of all the hires I just talked about. Sark, Davis, Kwiatkowski, I mean, you name it, they're there. But it is a loss nonetheless. But let's talk about why Brandon Harris is a good replacement. And look, I have a few reasons, and a few of them y'all might roll your eyes at. So I want to talk about, though, why I believe that these reasons are important, and it's the reasons why these guys are going to be seen across college football. The first is age. It is much easier for a recruit to relate to a guy who is 25 years old and who just a few years ago was a top 100 recruit in the nation and who played at a university that has incredibly lofty expectations in LSU. He knows what it is to be in a pressure cooker. He played in the SEC. He played against Alabama. I mean, he knows what it is to play in the biggest venues in college football. So he can relate to these guys. He knows the plight that they're about to go through. He knows the balance of college to social life to athletics. He knows that balance very well. And look, he might not have gone to the NFL, but he has still been incredibly successful in his capacity as an analyst at the University of Texas. Not only was Brandon Harris at LSU, he was at North Carolina, and then ended up at the University of Texas as an offensive analyst, and then worked with the running back coaches. Now, as I've always said about Bryan Carrington, and the reason I was high on him is because of his capacities as a liaison for the University of Texas and how he was able to make recruits feel so much more secure in their visits because they felt like they had somebody there. And that's the reason why I think it's easy to kind of underestimate Carrington's impact, because you didn't see his name directly attached to a lot, but if you listen in the background and you hear these kids who went on University of Texas visits, his name was being talked about a lot. And I've talked to some of the guys who've gone on those visits, and that's when I first got put on to Bryan Carrington and what he was doing at the University of Texas and how important he was. But Brandon Harris was shadowing Bryan Carrington that whole time. You look at a guy like Bijan Robinson. Bryan Carrington wasn't the primary recruiter on him, but you know who else wasn't a primary recruiter and was doing a similar job that Bryan Carrington was doing is Brandon Harris. He was serving as that liaison as well and kind of learning from Bryan Carrington. So when you have a guy who's played college football at a high level, who's worked on an offensive staff as an offensive analyst and with the running backs, who's had success in already being a liaison for the university and recruiting, and guys like Bijan Robinson, and then following it up with Jaden Blue in the class of 2022, he's proving to you that not only does he understand what it takes to be successful to be a college football player, but he understands what it takes to be successful in the capacities of what Bryan Carrington did. That's the reason I'm high on this. And look, the reasons I just gave, the youth, the having somebody relatable, the having a true liaison to the university that might not be a coach, that is a little bit more of almost a spokesperson for the university, and their whole job is to really hone in on recruits and get them feeling comfortable with that life. That's going to be something that is becoming bigger and bigger in college football. Look, it's not new. It's nothing new. But this is going to become bigger, and guys like Bryan Carrington are a big reason. A lot of other institutions out there are looking for the next Bryan Carrington because they've heard, like I've heard when talking to these recruits, that he was in the background doing a lot of good work, and recruits were very high on him. And Brandon Harris is incredibly important because you lose Bryan Carrington, and like I said, it's not a big loss because of who Sark hired, because of all the great recruiters there, and because of Sark. But now when you lose Bryan Carrington, you still have all of Sark's great hires, Sark himself, and you replace him with a guy that not only knows what it takes to be successful as a college quarterback and as a college athlete, but knows what it takes to be successful in getting recruits and functioning as a liaison. That's why I think that the get of Brandon Harris is a great one for the University of Texas. He gets to work with a staff that is already heralded as great recruiters, and if you look at the class they are putting together, it's so exciting because these guys are at the point of recruiting each other, and that's where you want to see your class at, with that much passion and looking forward to the future that your class will have. The class of 2022 is going to be a special one for the University of Texas, and as I said the other day, you do not want to start the Sark era the way the Herman era ended. And a guy like Brandon Harris is a great way to make up for the loss of Bryan Carrington. But y'all know what I want now. I want to hear from y'all. So hop down in the comments and let's talk about this because I really think that this is a great hire to replace Bryan Carrington. I'm really intrigued to see what Bryan Carrington does at USC, and I really do truly believe that we will see more individuals in light of a Brandon Harris, in light of a Bryan Carrington, that become an integral part of college football and college football recruiting. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below. That's it. See ya.